Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming together to be able to hear about what God's been doing in Angola through the Navigators of Canada's investment in the kingdom work here through our lives. I'm really thankful for this time to be able to share with you and hope that it can be an encouragement to you. And I want to thank you for your involvement in the work here in Angola through your administrative work, through your leadership, through your insights and your guidance. We couldn't do this without you. So thank you so much. I wanted to start out by introducing you to my family. My wife is Kara. We married in 2015, and Kara was with the Navigators at university in Kingston, Queen's University, and joined staff in 2011. And was on staff, I believe it was till 2021 or 22, when she transitioned to being a full-time mom. But she's definitely full-time involved in the industry as she does her parenting and being my wife in the presence of many witnesses that come to our house every day and see her interactions. So our oldest son is Charles, he's 7, and Ellie is 5, Julia is 3, and Rachel is 1. So I want to start out today by introducing to you a bit about our work here in Angola, and followed by that, just want to look at a vision for 2050, what God has laid on our hearts to do towards the next 25 years. And I believe that that vision, understanding where we're going to, will actually help you to understand what's going on and why we're doing what we're doing, why all the passion, why all the energy towards that vision. And also wanted to look at the history, how we got to where we are today, and what the next steps are, where we're going to be going, what we hope to be achieving, and how we're going to be doing that. And also looking at what we need to accomplish that, and how you guys can work with us to help us reach our goals. And we're going to end with some questions at the end. What we're doing today will build towards the future. Every seed that we plant now will bear its fruit in the future. So we need to look into the future and ask God what He wants to do and where He would have us move towards. So in 2020, we started praying as a group, a small group that was started with 15 of us, and we were praying towards 2070 when I'll be 80 years old. What do I want to see at the end of my life? And we felt God leading us to pray to seeing a movement of disciple makers, generations of disciple makers, transforming lives holistically in a way that they would become a blessing to their neighborhoods, their churches, and the whole of society. And this with the nations in mind. So we want to see every township of Angola, every one of the 500 and some townships around Angola, blessed with discipleship work being developed from our descendants of the faith. But we also want to see people going out to the nations. By 2070, we want to see people from Angola, descendants of ours, in every country on earth. Now, thinking of the Lausanne movement, which I'm part of, one of the dates that they were looking at was 2050. This last conference that we had in Seoul, South Korea, we were looking towards 2050. So that got me thinking, okay, what are we going to be doing till 2050? That's about halfway till the end of my life and our end of our ministry. So 2050, we're praying, asking God that He would raise up 10,000 disciple makers here in Angola from the generations of our work. And we want to see those 10,000 disciple makers prospering in all areas of their life, being a positive impact in all spheres of society, and doing that in over 300 of the 500 townships. So over half of Angola having impact from our work. And we want to see 1,000 of those being raised up and sent out, trained, equipped, financed to go to over 100 nations to make disciples around the world. And yeah, this is something that we're really excited about and we want to work towards strategically. We see those 10,000 disciple makers and 1,000 missionaries not only working within the Navigators, but also being a blessing to churches around the world and also other organizations like Pace Movement, Young Life, YWAM, OM, and the list goes on. We want to see them impacting and becoming leaders in other movements around the world. So I'd like to share a bit about our history, how we got to the point where we are today. So my great grandpa uh, came out of Moody Bible Institute, and 27 years old, came to Zambia among the Kaonde people and made an establishing work there amongst an unreached people group. And that's just across the border from Angola, the easternmost province of Bushiko. And his two sons that were born there came back as missionaries as well. One was Robert Foster, the other Herbert Foster, and they then had each 7 kids in Zambia. One of those was my mom. They all went back to Canada or the US to study. Mom got married. Her and my dad joined the Navigators, worked for 4 years in Canada, and then came out with AEF to Angola in 1985, and worked with AEF until 2002. After I joined SIM, they felt God leading them to rejoin the Navigators. So 2002 to 2010, they're with the Navigators. My dad passed away in 2010. I joined ministry in 2008 after a mountain climbing accident that some of you may have heard me share about in the past. I hadn't been focused on serving the Lord before that, but God used that mountain climbing accident to grab my attention and call me into ministry. So I joined a small church that was meeting in somebody's home with about 25, 30 people. And that's where I was allowed to develop my giftings and began to preach, began to lead small groups, and developed as the disciple group pastor, discipleship pastor. And that's where Kara came when she came in 2012 full time, and she joined the context of that local church. My mom joined that church as well, and their Navigators ministry was developed in the small groups that I was overseeing as the discipleship pastor of that church. And I stayed with that church from pastoring from 2009 till 2020. And I joined the Navigators as staff in 2019. Kara and I were married in 2015. I became an associate from 15 to 19. 2019 became Navigators staff. And 2020 felt led by the Lord to leave that already well-established church to start a sort of house church planting movement. And with about 15 young adults that we had been discipling and equipping. During the COVID time, we sent in a letter to the church and got their final approval on leaving, starting new work. And yeah, the 15 of us for several months just prayed in our home, early mornings, breakfast together, and studying God's word. And then after COVID, when things were allowed to reopen, we opened 5 small groups in 5 different neighborhoods. And yeah, God has blessed that, and those people have been trained, equipped, and then now passing that on to others. We've seen that leadership group go from 15. About every 6 months, we add new recruits from the small groups, from the people that we're sharing the gospel with, to that group of leaders being trained. And we saw it go from 15 to 20 to 30 to 45. Now, today, we're about 70 people um, leading small groups. And yeah, God has blessed it. We had originally the vision of by 2025 to have a well-established congregation in each one of those 5 neighborhoods where we're working, with about 5 to 10 small groups per neighborhood. But God has done way beyond what we imagined and had asked for. Today in our city, we're doing work in about 10 different neighborhoods. And work with children, adolescents, young adults, older adults as well. And some have gone to other provinces to start up work. And I'll show you pictures of where they are at now. And we've even had people gone to other countries to work as well. So let me move on. So as we've grown, we've had to become more organized. At the beginning, I was leading one small group, and then that group multiplied into several. And then I became an overseer for 4 or 5 groups, as I mentioned at the beginning. And eventually, those 5 groups became 10, 15 groups, and we had to multiply our supervision groups. So then we moved into having three, four, five. Today we have several uh, overseer groups that I'll show you. It's 8 different groups, and I became like a coordinator for those supervision groups. And further, we grew even more. And today I have these 3 guys. It's Basia, Eusebio, and Yotanai, who are helping me to coordinate the supervision groups. So we have um, somewhere between 80 and 100 small groups. Most of those are children groups with a lot of children meeting in small groups. And we have supervisors and then these coordinators that help keep things together, gather information, distribute materials, receive reports, and yeah, give pastoral care, help develop their teams locally. Um, so Basi and Eusebio help coordinate the work in 3 neighborhoods around my house, and Yotanai coordinates the work in 3 other neighborhoods with sub neighborhoods as well across town, about 4 kilometers from where we live. And I'm still coordinating the work in other provinces, and then also um, giving pastoral care to these 3 coordinators and the work as a whole. So, as I mentioned before, we have supervisors that those coordinators are working with. So we have Monish, who's working in Kunene province. So he went there in 2021 with a desire to reach out to his friends there. And they has about 6 small groups meeting there. Galatas, who's on the upper right, he's in Lubito, which is in Benguela province, and he has about 6 groups meeting there as well. And we also have work in Wambu, which is just a pioneer work, just with 1 group. Manan's leading there. I don't have his photo there because it's just a small group leader, supervisor yet, not with several groups. And then we have Nelu, Celso, Vado, and George, who help us supervise groups in different neighborhoods here in our city. So each one of them would have 5 to 7 small group leaders, and so they have a meeting once a week with those small group leaders. They'll have a meal, they'll worship together, they'll bring a word, and they'll organize and make plans because those groups are all in one neighborhood. So they might do evangelism together, they might do special events together, they might do some specific training activities in that neighborhood. So that is their role in those locations. So as the work has grown, needed more support administratively. Beginning, I did all the different organizing paperwork and reports and finances, but about a year and a half ago, I had Emilson start to volunteer, helping me with different reports and distribution of finances. And about 5 months ago, he accepted the challenge to become a full-time worker with me, helping me with the administrative work, writing reports, sending out monies, receiving materials that need to be copied, just to organizing the administrative side of our work. And we hope to develop a team. We have 1 person with communications, 1 person with fundraising, 1 person with bookkeeping that he'll be managing. So really happy to have had Milson helping me out with that. So these are 5 other senior members of our team. On the right, we have Ignaldu, and beside him, there's 2 trainers. These are the 5 that are in Nigeria. On the left, we have a couple, Dunya and Isidora. In the middle, Alex and Belinia. So the 5 of them were sent to Nigeria early last year, so end of April, and they'll be there for 2 years doing navigator staff training. So that's resulted from our relationship with Navs Africa. We're excited for them to come back and help us develop the navigators' work here, potentially answer that call to go to Portuguese-speaking Africa that the Navs of Africa would like to see happen, and even training others to do so as well. So really excited to see this happen. Want to see more of this, being enabled. So this is our more extended leadership team. I mentioned before we have about 70 people working in small groups. I think it's about 55 there. So not all of them came. This was on a Sunday. Usually we meet on a Sunday morning with this group. Others are in other provinces. Say there's about 12 working in other provinces. And then there's the 5 that are in Nigeria, of course, that are also not in the photo. Yeah, so we meet with them. They meet on different days for their neighborhood leadership team meetings. And then on Sunday, everybody comes together 8 to 11. We eat breakfast together, worship together, and singing, praying. One of the teams of the different neighborhoods, each of the teams has 1 week, so rotation. So each week, one of the teams will prepare our service. So they'll organize breakfast, they'll organize the word, they'll organize our worship time, prayer time, announcements. So it rotates in that way. So right now, with our 6 teams in our city, one team will lead that Sunday program once every 6 weeks. And yeah, as each one of these in their small groups is discipling, sharing the gospel, discipling people, helping them to grow, this by the end of this year maybe double this number, depending on how God blesses the work that they're doing. So in the work that we're doing, the team that we have both conventional income people, CIPs, and gift income people. Um, Up till the end of 2023, we only had myself as a gift income person, and the rest were all volunteers. But starting with the people, the 5 that went to Nigeria, we helped them to do fundraising to be able to become, yeah, funded for that training, and they're still working on their fundraising so that they can become full-time gift income people. And that's led to others here on the ground in Angola also taking on that idea, and we've helped them to fundraise. So we have about 20 interns that have come out of training with YWAM and OM and now doing 6 months of missionary training, sort of looking at what that actually looks like to be a full-time staff person through an internship, and 15 have actually become full-time staff doing fundraising. So we meet every Thursday helping them to work on their fundraising and getting up to staff. Those that are volunteers, there's about 60 of them, and some of them have work, but 83 are actually unemployed. So that's a big issue in the Angolan context. Work is difficult. There's lots of young people. 80% of the population are under 30, and there just aren't a lot of jobs being created. So that's something that you can be praying for, and we would like to do well in helping our people preparing for the job market and even entrepreneurship, developing companies that will bless this country. One of the answers that we've had to the problem of unemployment is actually in our holistic discipleship approach, in which we're looking at the whole life of people. And one of the areas is helping them develop professional skills. One example of that is Eusebio, who for 2 years I trained in karate. That's one of the things that I used to do professionally. And I passed that on to him. And today he actually makes his money by teaching karate at private schools. That's one example among many others. We had started a coffee business, a welding business, used clothes sales program, and yeah, helping other people. One project is actually done by Dunde, who's one of the guys in Nigeria. He started a school and has actually employed about 5 people in that school. So there's different initiatives that different people have done that show that care for people, helping them to develop professionally, socially, economically as well. Big influences that I've had in my ministry is the Lausanne movement. As I mentioned before, I'm a member, and one of the big things that Lausanne values is partnership, collaboration, synergies in advancing God's kingdom. So we've developed our work really depending and being dependent on, so an interdependency with other organizations and other churches to be able to accomplish big goals together. So one of our key partners is YWAM. We've sent many of our young disciples to do training with them, 3-month programs in our city, 5-month programs in other cities, and also adolescent camps in the summer that I'll talk a bit more about later. OM is another one of our partners that we also sent 7 people to do training with them for a whole year, in which they come back and do a 6-month internship period. And this year, we're actually sending our adolescents there as well for a month of training. And we've had their teachers come to 3 different provinces where we have small groups to run cross cultural missions training. And I'm also going to be the leadership training trainer and also fundraising trainer for OM starting this year. So a lot of interdependency with both those organizations. CETEB is a seminary where I studied, and I promote their work. We have about 100 people in Angola participating, including about 20 from our ministry. Angola Missions Team is a team of American missionaries who also provide theological training by modules at high school level, which has allowed one of our guys who's almost finished to actually look into starting university in September at the local seminary where my dad used to teach. Ready Set Go is a sports discipleship ministry connected also with FCA, Fellowship for Christian Athletes. So one of our guys has been connecting a lot with them, doing training, and also gone to South Africa for training and developing sports discipleship work right here in our city in various of the neighborhoods where we work. Pace Movement is an organization that has a gap mission year. We haven't sent anybody for a whole year yet, but one of our guys went for a month last year in Kenya. And this year, we're hoping to send 3 guys that are actually working right now on getting their visas to be able to go for a year to South Africa with Pace Movement. Uh, Navigators Africa is a natural connection. Last year, I was in Kenya at a country leaders gathering where 31 country directors were present, got to meet them, got to develop our connection more, especially with Edward Mopada, who's the regional director. And I've since then become the national director for Angola. So I answer to Mopada, who's the regional director, and one guy under him is my supervisor, who's Levi. So we're in connection, thinking together. One of the things that they want us to do is to develop teams here to be sent to Portuguese speaking Africa. Also been connecting with Navigators Brazil, which is also important because of the language and cultural link. Tendas de Esperança is a drug rehab center that also focuses on disciple making through their program, and I teach there. Sometimes we send people there as well that need that kind of help. Hora de Profetizar, Amen, and Voz para as Nações are 3 local mission organizations that have invited me to speak at their national missions conferences. Go Movement is an international evangelism movement that we're connected to and participated in. One of our guys works at World Vision. So there's a connection there. We've had somebody from World Vision help us with child protection training in the past. SOS Children's Village has also had me go and speak at some of their training events, and some of the leaders there are Christians, and they're also connected with our work and sometimes come to give training as well. Overland Missions is another partner that works with unreached people groups, tribes, nomad tribes in the deserts of Angola, that several of our guys go and experience their work as well. And MAF is Mission Aviation Fellowship. The administrator for Angola is my brother-in-law Rui, and I actually meet with him every Monday at 10. And we keep each other accountable, have a discipleship relationship that has spanned the last 16 years. I've been really blessed by him and being able to pray for MAF and encourage him, give some guidance, and yeah, it's a two-way thing as well. Young Life is another organization that I've been connecting with. Connected with the leaders in Portugal, talking about possibly sending people from here to there. And similar to Pace Movement, both of those organizations were talking about helping them to possibly start their work here in Angola. And Ministério Igreja em Célula is an organization that provides help to small group or house church planting movements like ours. So we actually use their books, and I'll be talking about them in a bit. Sometimes receive training as well through their work. So some of our work details. This is GBC, Grupo Bíblico de Crianças, Children's Bible Club. This is a concept that my dad developed in 1990. So it's been working for 34 years, and it's based on the 2-7 series TMS program. So the kids will learn 1 verse per week over 6 years. They learn about 200 verses and are graded each week. They learn about punctuality, developing their character. Yeah, so it's a pass-fail program, 12 grades, 2 grades a year that my dad developed that I went through. My siblings all went through. We became teachers in, and we've been developing that work in. We began in my home and then multiplied to another group and another group, and today we run it in 12 different neighborhoods Um, and yeah, some of the groups, I'd say the smaller ones would be about 30 kids in one location that meet. So they meet about 30 minutes singing together, playing some games, and a Bible teaching, and then they divide into small groups, about 5 to 12 in each small group. So you can see the picture at the bottom. That would be one of the small groups meeting with one teacher and then two auxiliary leaders being trained. So I was saying the smaller ones would be about 30 people in one location, and our bigger ones, some weeks are over 100 people in one location. So really, this would be the biggest sector of our population in Angola and also sector of our ministry. So a lot of work. Most of the meetings happen on Saturdays for these. Some prefer Sunday afternoons as well. It just depends on the availability of the team that runs those programs. And there's a whole curriculum that my dad developed that we follow on a weekly basis. Um, yeah, and a lot of our leaders, a lot of the people that are teaching today, it's amazing. They're about 16 to 18, were people that actually started when they were 6, 7, 8 years old and have gone through the whole program and today are teaching. So that's really amazing to see and really a blessing to be, yeah, seeing God work and seeing generations of disciple makers, even amongst children and adolescents, raising up. That's one of the things that we really strongly believe in, the prophecy of Joel, where he says that in those days, God will pour out his spirit on all flesh, on the young and the old. Yeah, and I see that as one of the hindrances of the church around the world is that we expect things of adults. Sometimes we don't even expect enough, but we expect the Spirit to move amongst adults and prophets and apostles and evangelists and teachers and preachers to be raised up amongst adults. But we forget that even amongst children and adolescents, God can pour out his spirit and give spiritual giftings and enable people to reach out, witness for Jesus amongst their communities. And that's what we're seeing happening with these children as they go, and many of the children reach even their parents, and the community transforming around this discipleship work is, yeah, a real blessing to see it. Really blessed to be part of that and seeing God move. We really believe that God will, if we continue to train leaders, God will bless us, and we'll be doing this in every neighborhood of Angola at one point. So similar, we call them células or cell groups for our teenagers and young adults and older adults. So usually this is about the number that we would have, about 15 people. Sometimes you'll have visitors come and the group might swell to 25, 30 people. The idea is that it would continue as 25, 30, but we keep it small. So the idea is to train up leaders and then multiply the group, plant new groups in new neighborhoods. That's really how our work has developed, so that these teens would be trained then to work with the kids and other teens, depending on their inclination as well. So the supervisors that you saw in the pictures before have the role of both leading groups, but then also visiting groups that the people that they've trained have started up and, yeah, seeing how they're going. Usually these groups, yeah, we have 4 different E's that we use in English. So it would be the yes, in English it's W. It's welcome. We start with welcome time. So we have snack, a game, and people just hanging out and getting to know each other. Then we have our worship time, so bringing our attention to Jesus, worshiping together, singing songs and hymns and spiritual songs. And then our word time, bringing in the edification, applying God's word to the life of each person and their families and their contexts. And then witness. We want to remember that we're not about just growing ourselves. We're not an inward focused group, but we really have a witness. We have to tell testimonies of how we're sharing the gospel and plans of who are we going to be reaching out to, where are we going to be starting new groups. That should be the weekly rhythm of welcome, worship, word, and witness in these groups. And then in those groups, we'll also start identifying people who are interested in more, in being discipled one-on-one or in triads, and who would benefit from time beyond the group. So this is the discipleship track that we use with people in our one-on-one meetings. So it starts out with an evangelistic book. These are all written by Ralph Neighbor, who's one of my mentors, who's 95 years old, and was translated by Ministério Igreja em Célula, which is that heart symbol that I showed you in our partnerships. So it starts out with an evangelistic book, and after which we have a retreat when people are done that, whole Sunday where they get to hear the gospel again preached by a gifted speaker. Small groups, they get to share their testimony to help people just make sure that they have assurance of their salvation. And yeah, get to hear about our church's vision, our church's structure, and then they move on to a book here where they start solidifying their roots, start having a quiet time, start confessing their sins, working out strongholds, meditating on God's word, listening to God's voice, and starting to submit to the Lordship of Christ. After that book, we go to the Freedom in Christ weekend, which we do about 4 times a year. So all the groups send the people that have finished during that period and are ready to participate. They have to finish the book before they can come to the retreat. It's a 3-day retreat. They're in silence and they're being confronted, one talk after the other, for different areas of sin. And then they meet with their mentor, confess their sins, and at the end they burn their confession papers on a bonfire. We've seen lots of impact through that work. And then they move on to Welcome to the Family book, which is 11 weeks, 55 lessons, where they're establishing the culture of heaven in their own lives, starting to walk like Christ, being filled with the Holy Spirit, understanding the spiritual giftings and what it means to love other people and serve them in a small group setting. And then we move on to the discipler or mentor training, and both those end with a retreat. We'll do another 3-day retreat where we solidify with gifted speakers each of the themes talked about, and we do training in disciple making. And then they move on to evangelism training. The first part is touching hearts training, which talks about reaching out to open unbelievers, people who are seeking for God's truth. And then we have these last 3 books that talk about evangelizing people who are closed to the gospel, who are resistant to the gospel. So that learning how to develop relationship with them and loving them with Christ's love, and a bit of apologetics, and just dealing with different excuses that people give as well. So this is the 9-book series, and then after they're done that, they learn how to be a small group leader. So this is the training track that we use with each of the people that goes through our programs. It takes usually a year or a little more depending on the person. In the last 3 years, we've been developing a new area in our work, which is organizing camps for teens during their summer holidays. So we've done this twice already. So 2023, we sent 45 teens to Wambu province, which is in central Angola. We organized this together with YWAM and had them do that time. It was 3 weeks of training and experience in missions cross-culturally, going out to villages. This last year, we were able to send 70 teens accompanied by our own leaders, going to Katumbela in Benguela province, which is on the coast, also with YWAM. This time they did a whole month where they had evangelism explosion, missions training, village missions experience, and a lot of fun, a lot of really good way to spend their summer and develop a vision for a lifetime of disciple making and a missionary heart. This year we're hoping to send 100 teens from all the 4 different provinces where we work to OM and Kwandukubango, Manonge, to do something similar where we'll have a Namibia team come and talk for a week about sexual purity, and we'll talk about finding their purpose in life, what the Bible has to say about finances. We'll do another evangelism explosion course, and also cross-cultural missions training with experience in rural areas. So really excited about this, and wanting to see this generation of young people raising up to do the work. So just wanted to show you a bit of the geography of Angola and where we're working. This slide will show you the different municipalities and provinces around the country. So Lubangu is where we began our work and where we live. So I'm tagging them in yellow if we have a permanent work there. Lubito is where Galatas has gone to serve and started 6 groups. Onjiva is where Monish has gone. Also about 6 groups started there. And Mananu is in Wambu. He started 1 group. He's working with YWAM there. He's been there for a few months. Got 15 people meeting and being discipled. And Luanda is where Nadia is, and has also been doing some discipleship work there as well. Manonga is where we have the OM base, and we've sent 7 different people for their year-long program. And these red ones means that we have had short-term, temporary work. Kuitu, Porto and Buin, people have been sent for YWAM Practicum, Saurimo, Cabinda, Moçambique, all those places we've had at some point discipleship work being done for 2-3 months at a time. We've also been pleased to see God moving us into the international sphere already with this vision of going to all nations. So we began in Angola, and God has blessed us to have one of our guys work in Namibia for 2 years, where he worked with the navigators. He's one of the guys that's in Nigeria right now. They're there, the five of them, as we mentioned. Elisandra is in Portugal, and we visited her in 2023 and introduced her to the navigators there. She's actually serving as a small group leader in a brand new evangelical Portuguese church, Brazilian church that started there in Portugal, in the city where she's at. We also had short-term work in Kenya with Dundi, who was there with Pace Movement, and Ludmila went to Zambia for 2 months last in 2023, and Lazaro was there for 2 months as well in 2024. And South Africa, we had our guy go there last year for 3 weeks at the Sports Discipleship conference, and we're hoping to send 3 guys to Pace Movement, as I mentioned already, and they'll be going there for 1 whole year. The green shows that we are hoping to go there. So Rwanda, we have the Regional Africa Conference, hoping to take 10 people, 5 that are in Nigeria and 5 other leaders from here, hoping to go there in April. So you be praying for us to be able to get the finances together to make that trip happen. And Brazil is another connection there with Navigators Brazil and also Ministério de Igreja em Células, hoping to send people for training there. And Hong Kong is another option for sending people to learn about church planting movements. So different connections, different opportunities that are presenting themselves, and God is making possible for us to expand internationally. So please pray for us to continue to move into the nations. So much. So I mentioned before that Nav Africa has the desire to see us develop navigators work in Portuguese-speaking Africa. So this is a map that shows Luso Africa. So Angola is where we are already. Mozambique, you can see here to the on the east coast of Africa, as no navigators work at the moment. São Tomé e Príncipe, Guinea-Bissau, and Cape Verde. All of those, we hope by 2030, so the next 5 years, to be able to prepare teams in Angola. So hopefully those guys in Nigeria will come back and help us to develop other staff, people with the navigators, to be able to send them out, get the financing needed for the training, and then also for them to be able to go out and start work in collaboration with Navigators Africa. So that's a big ask that you can be praying for 2030. So fundraising, of course, is a big part of what we need to do, as you guys well know, and I can imagine with the size of what we're doing. So right now we have 2 accounts. One is AHW, which is the code for my personal account where I get my salary, where my own direct ministry account happens. And then PAL is our Emerging Leaders Fund for Angola. And that's where we finance training with YWAM and OM, anything that happens outside our direct ministry, even Navigators Africa, where we're getting receipts for training with others. So that's where we raise money for scholarships, and it could be seminary fees and other professional development. I mentioned Dundi, who we're hoping to become national director for the Navigators in Angola, hoping that he'll do an MBA. So this scholarship fund is intended to help with that kind of thing, of training that will develop our work. So most of our fundraising happens in Canada. But we are hoping to develop more, working intensively, even aggressively with our fundraising in Angola, praying for 1,000 donors in Angola. In Canada, we have about 150 people giving to our account. In Angola, I'd say we're close to 150 maybe. I don't have the exact numbers right now, but we're working every week, finding people, making new lists, strategies for, gaining support in Angola. I studied in Germany for 2 years, so I've got some connections there. So I've got four or five donors from Germany, 1 in Holland, 2 in UK, I think about 10, 15 in the USA, and about 10 in Brazil. So right now, all the money that we receive in Germany, Holland, UK, and USA is being directed to Nigeria for the training of the 5 people there. Our money in Brazil, comes to Angola to support different initiatives here. That's both from sports discipleship context and also navigators context there. And our money in Canada mostly it all goes to PAL and HW directly to fund what we're doing. Yeah, so as you can see, our vision is big. One of the big numbers that I've been praying about is $10 million. That's a number that I've been praying about, and I asked you to be praying about. Help me develop, help me to think through that, how we can do that. And that's a number that I'm looking to raise in the next 10 years towards PAL. So for scholarships. So if I'm thinking about 1,000 international missionaries, I'm thinking about $10,000 per missionary for international training, which is about what we're spending on this 2-year program in Nigeria per person. So of course, some international programs will be cheaper. You might spend 2,000, 3,000, and others will be more expensive. So yeah, an average about 10,000 per person. So I'm looking at $10 million as a need. So hoping to tap into the idea of legacy giving, which is the idea of people in Canada. A lot of people are 70, 80, 90 years old, have accumulated wealth, and yeah, we want to challenge them to leave a legacy with their finances in their wills, leave 10,000, 100,000, say $1 million towards this kind of work, something that will have an ongoing impact, something where they can be excited about their finances, their well-earned cash being used to advance the kingdom even after they die. So that's something that I would like to pursue. So far, it's just an idea, conversation that's on the table. I would like your support. I would like to be able to figure that out, how we can do that through NAFS Canada, to be able to see that happen and see this big dream become a reality. Of course, that won't be our only fundraising. We'll also have monthly donations coming in on a regular basis, but that's something specific that I want to see those commitments made. Not necessarily the cash comes in, but over the next 10 years that are commitments made, that documented commitments of $10 million that will support the work over the next 30 years of training, say, from until 2025 or 25 years, if we wanted to send out 1,000 missionaries. And of course, that will continue having to build, that's one of the big asks that we have for fundraising. So, yeah, help us out. Let's figure this out and let's make it happen. Yeah, so I wanted to open it up for questions. I hope there was some clarity, some method to my madness. And yeah, if there's anything that wasn't clear, please present it and I'll try to answer in the best way possible. Thank you so much and God bless you. Let's do great things together.